Hello, good morning. I'm here. I'm showing up. I'm here. I've been working on a new series. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it. I've been abhorrently sporadic. Is abhorrently really the right word though? Regrettably? I've been regrettably sporadic um, in my live streams, which I was about to be like, I'm going to try and do better, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to do better, so I'm not going to make any promises. Anyway, so I've been working on a new series, so that's better. And so it's called Eternal Company. I'm writing it under my Eva Knight pen name rather than Anna McCluskey, although I'm also wondering if I should just do a different pen name altogether, because I don't know. So far under Eva Knight, all I've written is these 3 short stories that are just sapphic smut. There's no plot, just Greek goddesses are tired of Zeus having all the fun coming down to Earth, checking all the mortal women, so they decide they're going to come down to Earth and check all the mortal women, and that's pretty much the entire thing of each short story. So now I'm working on this epic horror comedy series, and I was going to do it under this pen name because it was going to have spice in it. Well, it's still going to have spice in it. And I was like, Anna McCluskey books don't have any spice in them, and I market them that way. I market them as being low romance, no spice, just action and darkness and things like that, and comedy. But so I was like, okay, this is going to be a completely different vibe. I should write under my other pen name. But now I'm going, okay, well, this is going to be very plot heavy, so maybe I don't write it under this pen name. Maybe I start an entirely new pen name, which kind of sounds exhausting. And so then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just write it as Anna McCluskey instead, and just make sure that people know that it's different. But I don't know. We'll see. I have to write it first anyway before I can publish it. So, and it's going to be 5 books as of right now. So those are, and I think they're going to be longer than my current books. Most of my books right now hover around 60,000 words, 50, 60,000 words. Then you've got my Rhymes with Witch books that are actually much shorter. They're more 35 to 40,000 words. And these ones I'm thinking are going to be more 70 to 80,000, more in that epic fantasy kind of, still on the shorter side for epic fantasy, but anyway, so, but I'm excited about it, and I'm doing it. It's going to be another way in which it's going to be different from my Anna McCluskey books, my current Anna McCluskey books. It's going to be first person, unreliable narration, 5 point of view. And so my initial thought was that they're essentially telling the story from the end of it, right? I mean, that's how it works, right? You don't, unless it's in present tense, you're not telling a story as it's happening, which that always makes my brain hurt, because it's how are you telling me this story? I don't know. I think I overthink it, but also I know that my readership is similarly neurodivergent and weird, and I figure any issues that I have, some of my readers are also going to have these same issues. I'm just I'm gonna do this in a logical way of okay, so they're telling the story, at the end of the story they're looking back on it, right? But it was pointed out to me at my writers group on Sunday. So I have one of my characters is has this sort of self-effacing kind of because she's not she doesn't see herself as a real person, because she is a Shabti, which is from ancient Egypt, when they had so they buried their pharaohs and people like that in the pyramids or whatever and tombs, and they would make the little like clay figurines that were supposed to like come to life in the afterlife and like be their servants. So she's one of those. Like she was made out of clay originally, and then in the afterlife she became a servant to this Egyptian princess. And then at some point between then and now, I say now, the story starts in 12th century. In the 12th century. So sometime between ancient Egypt and the 12th century, there was a labor uprising among the Shabti, and they like won their freedom. And so she is now free to travel the multiverse. And but she doesn't, at the beginning, like she kind of has some self-esteem issues because of this, because she doesn't see herself as a real person. And so in my manuscript, I kind of wrote that in. And then one of my writing pals was like, hey, but if she's going to have this character arc, which is, you know, the most logical character arc for her of like finding herself and becoming, you know, more confident and realizing that she does have value, then she can't be self-effacing at the beginning when she's like telling the story from after that character arc. So I came up with a thing because so the basis of this story, the like world that it's set in, is a sort of religio-mythic, is that a word? Religio-mythic? It sounds very impressive, so I'm going to go with it. This like religio-mythic multiverse where basically like Earth is kind of the center of this multiverse, and there are other planes of existence that have kind of attached themselves to Earth, and those are where like religions come from. So like there's a plane of existence for ancient Egypt, which is where Marasank comes from, essentially, even though like originally she was made on Earth. But you know what I mean? Like that's where she became real and like came to life. And anyway, so there's one for them, there's one for like Norse gods, there's one for Greek gods, there's one for the Abrahamic religions of like heaven and hell, there's one that's like you know, Mayan and Aztec, which I have a character from that one. And so she so I've decided, I kind of had this like idea a while back of like having a language and a name for this entire multiverse that's like ancient, you know, beyond whatever time. And I've decided actually that there's going to be some kind of like plane that language comes from that was like the original, and there's going to be some kind of like monastery type situation. I haven't quite dialed it in, but like kind of a monastery type situation on that plane that like keeps records of everything from the multiverse. And there's gonna be like each book, they're gonna be telling the story from the end of the book, because at each book they're going to go back to this like monastery place to seek aid of some sort. And so she's not telling the story from modern times. She's telling the story from the 12th century, where she's still in this character arc. And, you know, all of the characters, of course, are. So like I said, there's 5 of them. And so I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be really interesting. And it does mean that I have to come up with a 6th point of view character, just very minorly, who's going to be like the archivist, right? Who they're telling this story to, and they're like rewriting the story in modern English, which is why you, the reader, will be able to read it. Because that also bugs me, is when there's a story that like shouldn't be in modern English, but it is, and I'm just kind of like, you have given me no reason that this story is readable by me. And again, that's me overthinking, but I'm gonna do that for this story too. So that's where I'm at in my writing. I also need to be writing something for my Rhymes with Witch series. I need to write a second character or a second story arc. But I haven't started writing that yet or even outlining it, but I do know some of the details. So I was at a writing retreat last year with somebody from Florida. Oh, she was on here. She was on the Real Author channel. Megan O'Russell. You can go back and watch our conversation. It was actually quite interesting about actually kind of similar to what I was just talking about like adapting mythologies. Anyway, so she's from Florida, or she lives in Florida, and she was talking about how like Big Sugar influences everything in Florida, like policies and things like that. And they're just like very big, as the name might indicate. And so I was like, Big Sugar sounds like the name of a waitress at a diner who doesn't take shit from anybody. And so I was like, I want to write in a character named Big Sugar who has the diner. And so then I decided that that would be part of my Rhymes with Witch series because, it's funny. And so it needs to be my comedy series. So I have, for my second arc, this is a tiny bit of a spoiler, but not really, because I'm not going to tell you any details. But at the end of the first arc of Rhymes with the Witch, which is what's out right now, like it's sort of a trilogy, but I'm going to write more, so it won't be a trilogy in the long term. But like the first 3 books that are out right now stand as a complete story arc. And at the end of that, I indicated that one of the characters is actually a witch and didn't realize it because she's adopted. And so the second arc is going to be her going off and learning how to be a witch. And of course, since then, I've written the Matilda Holiday series and the Warrior Mage Librarian series. And in the Warrior Mage Librarian series, we discover the existence of cryptids, and we discover that witches are in fact cryptids. And so because I'm writing this now, and she's going to this like she's going to be immersing herself in witch culture, like she's going to learn about cryptids, and she's going to this village in the Coast Range of Oregon, which is like very remote, like there's just like little enclaves kind of throughout the mountains. And so it's going to be a cryptid/human enclave, sort of like the werewolf village that you might find in book 4 of Warrior Mage Librarians. But this one is like just general cryptids and humans living together. And there's more witches, I think, than anybody, which is why, she's going off to, I almost said her name, but I don't want to spoil it. Why she's going off to live in this village so she can learn how to be a witch. And anyway, so I've decided that I want a diner there called, like, I don't remember what the name was, but we'll just say Larry's Diner. But nobody knows who Larry is because Big Sugar is the only one who works at this diner, and for all anybody knows, owns it. But also Big Sugar has worked there for like 200 years since the village like came to be, and the diner was like already there. And so nobody knows what Big Sugar is. Like, she's obviously not human, but nobody knows what kind of cryptid she is, and she like doesn't really tell anybody anything about herself, and she's just like very mysterious. So that's going to be like kind of a major plot point of the second arc of the series. So I'm excited about Big Sugar. But I haven't really started writing that yet. I want to kind of get into Eternal Company first. Like, I think I can do that where I have the 2 projects going at once. I've done it before. The first arc of Rhymes with Witch I was working on while I was working on The Bloody Unicorn, which of course is like not coming out till next year, but it's been sitting there for a while. And of course, if you backed the backer kit, I actually just ordered a bunch of them, so you should be getting them soon, yay! But officially it's not releasing until next year, because I really want to like do a whole big thing of like, plus I really wanted it to come out in October, and that just kind of did not happen for a variety of reasons. There were a lot of moving parts to that book because it's not just me working on it. I have an illustrator, and then I have like I needed to do photography, and so like I'm not really like super knowledgeable about photography, so I had to kind of like take my time and like enlist help from friends, and so anyway, so it didn't happen, but I really want to do like a tour with it with my illustrator and like do it in October, so it's like, hey, spooky season's here. So I'm going to release it next year, but you'll be able to buy it on my website if you want in the meantime. And yeah, so I've definitely done multiple projects at once that are like unrelated to each other. I think that's the key, is that they have to be unrelated to each other. Oh, and I wrote the Goddesses Gone Wild stories while I was finishing up Devil's Triangle, book 4 of Warrior Mage Librarians, and I think it actually helped me finish up book 4 because I was able to do these two wildly different stories at the same time. So it was like, if I wasn't in the headspace to do the like dark urban fantasy of Warrior Mage Librarians, I was able to move over instead to this like kind of silly smut stuff that's just like no real substance and doesn't take itself too seriously, which, like, I don't know, I think that there's substance to Rhymes with Witch, but it definitely doesn't take itself too seriously. So I think that that will be a really good counterpoint for me to this horror comedy series of Eternal Company, which, again, will have a comedic element, but I really want it to be like true horror. I read a book a few months ago that I think kind of inspired this idea because it was really well done, and it was definitely like horror and comedy, and it were blended like masterfully. It was called The Dead Take the F Train. So I actually really recommend that one, and I'm gonna try to do my best to make this as good, but it'll be a series, and it won't, it's obviously not the same plot line, but just vibes wise, I'm gonna try and make it like. The problem is that, so like for a long time, I thought that I didn't like horror because I didn't realize that a lot of the stuff I liked was supposed to be scary. And so it's kind of hard for me to actually do horror because I don't really know what horror is supposed to be, if that makes sense. I don't know. I have a poem coming out in a horror poetry anthology sometime in the near future. I don't know what our release date is. Nobody's told me that. I also don't think I've been paid for it. I should probably reach out and ask them. But it's a poem about somebody who's in a dungeon listening to blood drip from another cell. And it was like the first thing that I wrote after my like big burnout situation, and it kind of like got me back into writing. And I kind of like, I wrote it and then I looked at it and I was like, wow, what does it say about me that this is the first thing I've written in like 2 years? So I guess I've got the horror in me. I just don't really know necessarily what's scary. So, but I will have, beta readers and people to help me out with that. Although, I don't know, like one of my beta readers just came out with this, they haven't come out with it yet, but they just finished writing this. So it's like a horror rom-com. And when they gave it to me to beta read, they said that one of their other beta readers who they'd given it to first was like, this is not a rom-com, this is terrifying. And I read it and I was like, really? This is funny. Like, so I don't know. Like, we'll see if Asher can even really help me. But I have other people too, so that's we'll see. We'll have lots of input. Let me know if you want to read it, because I'm always looking for feedback on things. And yeah, so I'm gonna go like write stuff now, because Now I'm feeling really inspired because I've been talking about it. So I'm gonna go do that, and I will